So that's one thing. We were talking about business and science and merging them. Science moves at a snail's pace compared to business, because business is all about, making money. Research is more about finding answers, and it takes a lot longer. Like, let's say we wanted to do an experiment with it. They would put the equipment on us. We'd have a little pack on our back or something, and we would start interacting. And people are starting to look at what they call it synchrony. Okay. And our brains start to sync up.
My name is Jarosław Kareslak.
I'm Kamil Kramic.
I'm a professor of biostatistics at Indiana University in the United States.
I'm a supply chain expert with a focus on global transformation projects.
I primarily deal with more efficient use of data coming from medical experiments.
I'm passionate about leadership, continuous improvements, and culture in the global business landscape.
So just wanted to say that all the opinions in this podcast are our own, and they do not represent the institutions that we're associated with.
As you know, the nature of the podcast around here, we're trying to, we're getting the two worlds colliding of, the business world, and I'm always pushing Jarek for like very one sentence answers to a very complicated issues sometimes, and he always says it depends, and I'm expecting that. And then the second world of science, and actually bringing some of the the efficiency of getting to an answer to a question that you get it all together. And I have, when I heard Jarek saying, look, we can have a conversation with you. He told me about what do you do, and what were you looking at, what's your field of study. And when I've heard brain imaging, it just went straight into this number of questions, a number of like a practical business or world applications that I just started to open up with. And look, it might all be a bit of a dreaming for me, but I have to take the opportunity right now and to ask, because for me, I'm really passionate about people, behaviors, and what you're going to find in business as well. Everyone has to be passionate about people and behaviors, because if you sell a product, it's basically the behaviors or how people react, how they make their decision is actually the key to to finding either the right product, service, or to be a successful business. And the question that just automatically popped up in my brain, saying when we start to get the elements of the brain with brain imaging, or the chemistry, or all of the complicated processes that get us to a decision or a career or which product to buy, and the question that came to me was around, can we start? Is there a way of scanning the brain, or getting the brain scanned into a way that can actually help like marketing, or help like people who design products or design things to actually help them forecast what sort of decisions are going to be?
So yeah, you should bring Tom Nichols on this one day, because he was at the University of Warwick. And he worked not just in statistics, but in another manufacturing area, because up in Warwick, it's a lot of auto manufacturing, sure. Much like Detroit and Michigan.
That I didn't know, but that's great to know.
Okay.
And they had one guy who's in manufacturing, and I believe they had, instead of a MRI machine where you lay down, it was actually a vertical, so you could stand in it.
Okay.
And he was interested in how you could study these things to help with manufacturing processes, but.
Okay, so
that might be a time for a different podcast. So that's all I know about what was going on up there.
Okay.
But if you want to just to continue a little bit, I mentioned I graduated with my PhD from UCLA in '97. Worked there almost 4 years actually, and then I moved to the University of Michigan. I got hired in biostatistics as a research assistant professor, and right away. Day one, I was introduced to some people in radiology.
Right.
One guy was a chemist or biochemist, and engineering type people there. And they were working on a big program project grant, which is like 4 smaller grants that have some synergy all together. And I was put on that and helped them write the grant, and we got that. I think I was funded on their work for maybe 15 years or so.
Okay.
So that's how I got back into imaging, because my PhD had nothing to do with imaging. My time at UCLA had nothing to do with imaging. And the first thing, it was something called quantitative MRI,
Okay.
where they look at things like, the biggest thing is called diffusion MRI. It measures, it's called Brownian motion, but it measures in your brain, everything is very cellular.
Mm-hmm.
So free water in the extracellular space can't move very much, so you get these low apparent diffusion coefficients. But in tumors, if they wanted to study if these quantitative MRI techniques could be used to determine within a few weeks of treatment if it was working, because the standard of care is to do the treatment, wait 3 months, take another image, see if the tumor shrunk by 25% or not, right? If it shrunk by 25%, you were a responder. If it was less than that, you were stable disease. If it grew, you were non-responder. So if you could do things quicker, you could maybe give them a different medication or try something different for them, faster than waiting 3 months. So they wanted to see if, after you gave them chemo, a certain type of chemo, if these glioblastomas, a particular type of cancer in your brain, tumor, if they would start falling apart. It's called the cells lyse. The cells in your body have a membrane, and if your cells die because you've killed them, they can't maintain that membrane. They fall apart, and you get kind of this soupy type stuff in the tumor, and then the motion of the water molecules are going to be able to move more, and you'll see an increase in the apparent diffusion coefficient. So they're using these techniques, and
I'm nodding a lot, by the way.
I'm
probably like half.
If I throw out words,
I get the idea.
if I throw out words like glioblastoma or lyse, I try to explain what it is. Glioblastoma is a solid brain tumor, very aggressive, and people don't live with them because they usually can't remove them or all of it, and so it's a terminal type of a disease. And then lysine is the cell membrane breaks apart. And so, I was helping them with doing some analysis of that data.
All right.
Did that for many years, and then they were, had other types of imaging techniques they wanted help with. And then you get to, they talk to other people, and they, mention your name, and you get on other people's grants. So I did stuff with a nuclear medicine physician who was doing prostate cancer research, and they had different types of chemotherapy agents that they would give the people, and then they'd image the prostate cancer and see what's going on.
Okay. And what was the objectives, I'm guessing, from like the scans, to get the answer quicker, I guess, or try to determine, or with a scan, or try to get a...
If the new agent that they're studying, the chemotherapy, if it's a new drug, if it's working.
Then you want to know, and then I guess...
And when you're doing, so that's one thing we were talking about, business and science and merging them. Science moves at a snail's pace compared to business, because business is all about, making money. Research is more about finding answers, and it takes a lot longer to do research than I think,
It's probably, but then we come to that's probably another topic we can talk about, of the quality of the decision and the things around, because speed is not always, the best thing.
Well, it's always,
we might get around to talking about AI.
It's always Goldilocks, Goldilocks solution, that's the best, but the thing is, it's, and we're not going into politics or anything, but with National Institutes of Health in US, it might be, maybe it's too slow, but now some people are saying that introduction of the vaccines, the COVID vaccines, was too fast and so on. So again, we're not making any kind of statements about that, but the thing is the speed versus accuracy versus, how much do we need to know to actually introduce something, especially in health domain. That's a big question. It's not. There are no simple answers there, I think.
No. Okay. Yeah. As always, I get it. I guess like let's take the real monetary business element out of it. And I know that
Well, we can talk about that because you mentioned earlier you wanted to know
Yeah,
if brain
that's-
imaging could be used in business somehow.
Yeah, this is the bit. But let's choose something better. Let's choose something which is connected with health a little bit more, maybe like well-being, employee well-being. So it's a big topic right now, and it should be a big topic because it's something which the world is just running right now, and it just picks up the pace, and everything's too quick, and there's too much information, and we get stressed out. And I think it's a really important subject to make sure that we can do it. And I was thinking once around talking with you, Jarek, around you have your research around gathering data from patients, like real-time wearable devices, so things like that. We were talking around, like, could we get some of that information about your mood, or how do you feel, or how does a certain situation at work in particular make you feel, and could you like record that particular thing either by hand or get some information from, I don't know, like a heart rate or whatever else is around there, and that's where I started to think,
I have a great example.
Yeah.
Maybe not well-being, but I recently, not me, but we have something, the NIH gives these training grants. They're called K Awards.
Okay.
And it's for after you get your PhD, if you want to learn something different or expand your knowledge, you can apply for these K Awards.
Okay.
And so this psychiatrist did, a person in the psychiatry department. And what they're studying is, I believe it's in children. No, it's anxiety. I don't think it's children.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so they put them in the magnet, and they show them pictures of faces that are scary or this or that,
Right.
and then they get this response. Okay, and it's almost a real-time response where parts of their brain light up in the
Right.
prefrontal cortex. That's really powerful, and they get anxious. And then they have a period where they don't do anything, and then they'll do it again, and then they'll give them some biofeedback
Okay.
instructions.
What's a biofeedback instruction?
Well, the whole thing is about biofeedback. So, you hook yourself up to
Okay.
maybe a heart monitor or something like that, and you get in a stressful situation, and then
Right.
someone will coach you through
Okay.
relaxation techniques or something, or you've already learned them. Okay, now practice your relaxation techniques, and you watch your blood pressure go down or your heart rate go
Right.
down. Okay, this is working. I can do this. So
Okay.
they're doing this in MRI machine now for
right.
functional MRI, and so they'll show them these pictures. You have some response in your brain, and it shows up on this fMRI screen, and it actually they'll show them bars. Oh, this is how strong your response was.
Right.
Now let's see, start trying to interpret the picture differently.
And learn how to not to
And
be
maybe the
anxious
next
and-
time it'll go down and go
Yeah.
down, because they'll do it like 5 times in the magnet. So,
Oh, that's really
so
interesting.
it's kind of giving them this biofeedback and this real-time measurement of how,
This is really.
they know how anxious they are because they feel it,
Right.
but what their brain is experiencing, if they can
Absolutely.
change that.
In sports, does that a lot. I did a few training in like the team GB. There was a person I've met that worked with the national rugby team, and they sat down and, like you said, they would attach a few sensors for different kind of elements of your blood pressure, like other things, and you would actually. You were teaching yourself not to react in the same sort of a manner that you talk about, how to control stress. And they showed them they learned it was a very easy interface as well. So it's almost like through your breathing and how you react, you'd have to keep a very visual interface, and you had to keep a graph in the green or something like that all the time. And when they learned of how to do it, then they showed them a video of, I don't know, a massive failure. I don't know, they were running and, the ball dropped or something which was really bad in front of, a large audience. And then it started to go into red again, and they learned through it. So I'm guessing, like MRI and some more sophisticated scans right now are getting into that thing as well, yeah?
So you also mentioned the FNIRS.
Yes.
Is that, can you talk about that?
Yeah,
Like, can you
so-
define what it is first? And
He called it FNIRS, and it stands for Functional Near Infrared Spectroscopy. So
Yeah.
I always like to do this.
Right.
You see, it's just white light,
Yeah.
right? All colors of the spectrum. It's called
Absolutely.
incoherent light. If I put my finger on it, what color is my finger?
Red.
Red, because the red light goes through tissue.
Yes. Yes.
Okay? So near infrared light goes farther into tissue.
Right.
And so they can put, let me turn my
Yeah.
camera off there.
Yeah.
They can put like a cap on
Uh-huh.
with they're called optodes, little LED usually now.
Right.
Near infrared LED lights on, and 3 centimeters apart, they'll put something that will collect light, a
Okay.
photo detector. And the near infrared light goes through your scalp, through your skull, and in the superficial level of your brain, or the cortex of your brain.
Okay.
And then the light spreads out in all directions,
Okay.
and some of it will reach that detector. So it goes back
Mm-hmm.
out through your skull, and it'll reach the detector.
Let's go through the skull.
Yeah.
That's because I could see you.
And so if they put 2 here and here, and I'm reading a sentence or something, or reading, this part of your brain's called the temporal lobe. It's responsible for language processing. And so if you put it there, and you're reading or talking or something, that part of your brain might have a lot of neuronal activity going on,
Okay.
right? Just firing away like crazy. And so that causes a response in your body to send more oxygen through blood.
Fair enough.
And this functional near infrared light, they measure it at 2 different wavelengths of light. And one absorbs the oxygenated hemoglobin more than deoxygenated, and vice versa. So then the little math equation will convert it into the changes in the amount of oxygenated and
In a particular-
deoxygenated
yeah.
blood cells.
Right.
And so that's a surrogate for neuronal activity.
Okay.
And they've made these things now. I mean, they put these electrodes on, and then they have like
Right.
cables. But they've made the system now small enough that you can wear it as a vest
Fair
and
enough.
a little helmet type thing, soft helmet.
Right.
So you can get on a treadmill and run. You can move around your daily business. So
That's incredible.
you could wear it throughout the day in the office and see how things change in your brain
Right.
over time.
Yeah.
so it's like as opposed to MRI machines, where actually you have to go into this room, you have to get prepared, cannot have anything metal on.
Sure,
it's
sure.
actually
Or
the
in
whole-
your body.
Or in your body.
In your
yes,
body, yeah.
yes.
So because it's a very
it's
strong-
a huge.
Very,
I-
very strong magnet,
Yeah.
the machines
But
are.
To your point as well, what I wanted to say as well is as a person not connected or not being part of like, the whole, like medical business, let's call it, or medical area, when I hear like scanning or imaging, like X-ray and everything, my immediate reaction is like, I don't want to do too much of it at the same time. But when you hear it's just light, and it's LED, that's just like exactly like you show it there.
I might have said that red light is absorbed. Red light passes through your tissue, not absorbs. Yeah, sorry.
No, I actually
all the
think-
other wavelengths get absorbed.
I actually think you said it right now. But
Okay,
it-
I don't remember.
it
I thought I
just-
said
it just
absorbed.
It just sounds safe, if you know what I mean. And
So
it's
you know,
just like,
it is. It's
MRI,
non-invasive.
MRI is safe.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not X-rays. It's not there. There are some technologies where they use radioactive tracers. Yeah, that's you can't do it too often.
Yeah.
But actually, magnetic resonance imaging, what Tim was talking earlier about, that's pretty safe.
But I'm pretty sure, every single one of those, if performed correctly, you're in a safe. But I'm thinking about like perceiving the process. When you go an
Yes,
MRI, it goes like, oh my God, it's a serious, it's something really serious. Like you said, it has all of those.
It feels serious
limitations,
because
and it feels
you
serious.
put in a gown. You're in a
Absolutely.
hospital,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Absolutely. When in fact this might be just another, Appleton's going to have a.
And a lot of people can't
Stress.
go into MRI machines.
I can't,
if you're
but-
claustrophobic, you can't.
Right.
If you've ever gotten any metal shards in your eye
Right.
from drilling metal or something or whatever, or if you're a vet and you have shrapnel somewhere in your body, you can't.
Or if you have piercing that cannot be really removed, that's
Yeah.
like, you know, if you have piercing in your, you know, different parts of the body, you can get the
You want
scan.
to tell us about that experience, Jarek, a bit more?
I was one. No.
No, with the piercing, no. I can tell you about claustrophobia. That
Fair
you know,
enough. Fair enough.
if you have to have it done, if you actually have to have it done, but you can't, they can knock you out. They can still do it. Not fMRI, not functional
Right.
MRI, but if it's just the scanning of like the structure,
Liver
You
or
can still-
kidney or something
yeah,
like that.
or the
you can-
back or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
This
But
is
this,
really
this
interesting.
new tech, it's not new, it's been around for 30, 40 years, but only over the past 10 or 15 years has it really taken off because the instrumentation it's a lot less expensive to buy a system, maybe 100,000, whereas
Sure.
a magnet is several million, and then you've got to make sure that it stays cold all the time, so you always have to have a fresh supply of liquid nitrogen. You have to have an engineer on site taking care of it almost all the time. It's just a very expensive
Special
technology.
building, special. I mean,
Absolutely.
there's
Special
Yes.
magnetic building and everything.
Yes, yeah.
And in the business world, what they're doing with FNIRS now is they would put, like let's say we wanted to do an experiment with it, they would put the equipment on us. We
Right.
have a little pack on our
Yeah,
back
yeah,
or
yeah.
something. And we would start interacting. And people are starting to look at what they call, I think they call it synchrony.
Okay.
And our brains start to sync up.
Oh, that's really interesting right now.
And the areas that light up, you know, it's kind of
Start to be the.
yeah, exactly.
That's
Um,
absolutely.
and our low frequency brain waves that are always active in your brain, they start to sync up as well.
So being like, you know, there's a cliche or an idiom, you know, being on the same wavelength.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
But
exactly.
this is like
Exactly.
really, but this is really being on the same
Wavelength, exactly, yes.
physical.
And then, you know, when you think about teams and
But you
like
can't do
high
that with-
performance team, and when you get on to each other, you start to get science of what it actually means. And when you're in the zone, when you're like, you know, really performing well and it's not stressful, it's actually, you know, this wonderful feeling you have in your side as well, like performing, you start to actually get elements of what it means and put it into you know, into some models and naming it. Yeah.
Magic happens.
Magic happens. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
you know, and you can't do that type of synchrony study with fMRI because
Yeah.
you're in a magnet.
Yeah.
Maybe you can with something called EEG, electroencephalography.
Fair enough.
But usually those are hooked up to pretty big computers. So I don't know if they have newer technology that.
I don't work on
Yeah.
it
But
really,
anyway,
but, yeah, it's
it's a different technology. It measures something completely different than functional near infrared.
I can like literally, you know, if we would have any sort of a leader or an HR or someone who wants to have a performing team, my boss would love to hear that conversation as well, you know, around how to make it, you know, better and more enjoyable at the same time. And if there's a you know, science behind it that you can name it, oh my God, I can see so many applications that would be there. Yeah.
So I do know they do, the psychologists at University of Michigan and other places, they will do these synchrony studies with this functional near infrared spectroscopy technology. And I could imagine somebody who's creative in the business world could come up with an application to help there as well.
There is the one
it's
thing.
like a
there's-
business idea.
It is, but there's automatically a sort of amber light in my thing in my brain as well.
Probably a psychologist or a psychiatrist who works with, you know, interpersonal interactions in the business world or something. Probably
Absolutely. I mean,
has
it's all
ideas
about
on
that
how to
now.
do
Yeah.
research on that. And
Yeah. The amber light in my thing is obviously the ethical element of it. I mean, I don't know if that's real or not, and I haven't worked in insurance, but I did hear a statement that, you know, all of the smartwatches and all of the data that we bring from any sort of a sports measuring devices can be also used by, you know, like insurance company of gathering data and mapping out, you know, premiums, and maybe actually, you know, starting to the data that we want to use in a really good way, and especially workplace and business is probably a place where you come with caution around, you know, putting scanning devices and things in you. That's something that could be a bit. Yeah. Yeah.
Genetics was a big thing because people started doing there are those different companies. I'm not naming them, but it's like you can just send your saliva sample and you have your kind of genetic code, and then
They can trace your ancestry. They can tell you what diseases you might be, resistant to, or that you might have a particular genetic marker that you might be more susceptible to getting a cancer.
Sure.
So there
always
insurance
these
companies use those. That's very tough. And at least in academics, if you ever want to do any research on subjects,
I'm sorry.
IRB, it's hard to get. The IRB applications are long and difficult.
So IRB is Institutional Review Board.
Yeah, sorry.
And it's a pain. Like
It's for protecting
Absolutely.
subject or
It's there.
patients or volunteers for your experiment.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. If you find the topics in the discussion interesting, please do subscribe and push the subscribe button, because that will allow us to make many more interesting subjects into our conversation.
Yeah, we will have guests. We will have, we'll talk about other interesting topics. So let us know. What do you think?
Let us know what you think and push that button, please.